Sarah had always been proud of her home in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek. It wasn't the biggest house on the block, but it was hers, earned through years of hard work as a nurse. The backyard, though, was her true pride and joy. A sparkling in-ground pool, surrounded by neatly trimmed hedges and a sturdy wooden fence, served as her personal retreat. After long shifts at the hospital, she'd slip into the cool water, letting the stress of the day melt away. For Sarah, the pool wasn't just a luxury. It was a necessity, a place where she could find calm in a chaotic world. But that calm began to erode about 2 years ago. It started with small signs. Wet footprints on the pool deck in the morning, a stray towel left behind, or the faint smell of chlorine lingering in places it shouldn't. At first, Sarah thought she was imagining things. Maybe she'd left the towel herself, or the footprints were from her own late-night swims. But then she found a soda can floating in the water one morning, one she didn't recognize. That's when she knew. Someone was using her pool without her permission. She tried to brush it off at first. Maybe it was a one-time thing, some kids messing around. She checked the gate, which had a simple latch, and figured it wasn't secure enough. So, she invested in a heavy-duty padlock and made sure it was locked every night. Problem solved, she thought. But a week later, she woke up to find the pool's cover slightly askew, water splashed on the deck, and a pair of unfamiliar flip-flops abandoned by the lounge chairs. The padlock was still in place, untouched. Whoever was getting in wasn't coming through the gate. They were climbing the fence. Sarah's frustration grew. She wasn't just annoyed about the trespassing, she felt violated. This was her space, her sanctuary, and strangers were treating it like a public park. She started staying up late, peering out her bedroom window to catch the culprits in the act. For a few nights, nothing happened. Then, around 1 a.m. one humid summer night, she saw them. 3 figures, shadowy and quick, scaled the fence with ease. They were young, maybe late teens or early 20s, laughing softly as they stripped down to their swimsuits and jumped into the pool. They splashed around for about 20 minutes, completely unaware of Sarah watching from above, before climbing back out and disappearing into the night. The next morning, Sarah called the police. She explained the situation, describing the trespassers as best she could. The officer who responded was sympathetic but not particularly helpful. Without clear evidence or a way to identify the intruders, there wasn't much they could do. He suggested installing a security camera, which Sarah did that same week. She mounted a high-definition camera with night vision, angled to capture the entire backyard. She also put up a no trespassing sign on the fence, hoping it would deter the culprits. The camera worked, at least in capturing evidence. The very next night, it recorded the same 3 figures climbing over the fence, swimming for half an hour, and leaving behind a mess of snack wrappers and soda cans. Sarah handed the footage over to the police, expecting swift action. But again, the response was lukewarm. The faces weren't clear enough to identify, and the police said they couldn't dedicate resources to staking out her backyard for what they called a minor property issue. They advised her to reinforce the fence or hire private security, neither of which she could afford. Sarah wasn't one to give up easily. She'd dealt with tough situations before. Long hours in the ER, difficult patients, even a divorce that left her rebuilding her life from scratch. If the police wouldn't help, she'd handle it herself. She started by trying to reason with the trespassers. One evening, she left a handwritten note taped to the pool cover. "I know you're using my pool. This is private property. Please stop, or I'll be forced to take further action." She hoped the direct approach would scare them off. Didn't. The next morning, the note was crumpled in the grass, and the pool was a mess again. Her patience was wearing thin. She spent hours researching online, looking for ways to secure her property. She considered electrifying the fence but quickly dismissed it as too dangerous and legally risky. She thought about draining the pool entirely, but that felt like letting the trespassers win. Besides, the pool was her refuge. She wasn't about to sacrifice it. Instead, she doubled down on surveillance, adding motion sensor lights and a second camera to cover blind spots. The lights seemed to spook the trespassers for a few nights, But they were back by the end of the week, now wearing hoodies to obscure their faces from the cameras. Sarah's frustration turned into determination. She wasn't just going to stop them. She was going to make sure they regretted ever stepping foot in her yard. She started studying their patterns. The camera footage showed they usually came between midnight and 2 a.m., always on weekends, and always in a group of 3. They were careful not to make too much noise, but they weren't exactly stealthy. They'd climb the fence on the east side, where a large oak tree provided some cover, and they'd leave the same way. Sarah began to suspect they were local, maybe even kids from the neighborhood who knew her schedule and thought they could get away with it. One night, she decided to confront them. She waited in the dark, sitting in a lawn chair just inside her back door, watching through the glass. Sure enough, around 1:15 a.m., the 3 figures appeared. She stepped outside, flipped on the floodlights and shouted, "Get out of my yard! I see you!" The trespassers froze, then scrambled over the fence in a panic, leaving behind a backpack and a pair of sneakers. Sarah retrieved the items, hoping they'd contain some clue to the intruders' identities. Inside the backpack, she found a water bottle, some snacks, and a keychain with a local high school's logo. It wasn't much, but it confirmed her suspicion. These were likely teenagers from nearby. She considered going to the school with the evidence, but she knew it wouldn't lead anywhere without names or faces. Instead, she decided to use the backpack as leverage. She left another note, this time pinned to the fence. "I have your backpack. Stop coming to my pool, or I'll turn it over to the police." She also left the sneakers by the fence, hoping the gesture would show she was serious but not unreasonable. For a week, the trespassers stayed away, and Sarah thought she'd finally won. But then, the following Saturday, they were back, bolder than ever. The camera caught them laughing as they tossed the note into the pool before climbing out. Sarah's anger reached a boiling point. She wasn't just dealing with kids having fun, they were taunting her. She spent the next few days brainstorming, determined to find a solution that didn't involve violence or legal battles she couldn't afford. That's when she remembered a conversation with a colleague at the hospital, a prankster who loved harmless but effective tricks. He'd once mentioned a chemical used in pools that was safe but could turn water a bright, alarming color under certain conditions. Sarah did some research and found a non-toxic dye used for leak detection in pools. It was harmless to swimmers but would turn the water a vivid red when exposed to a specific trigger, like a sudden change in pH balance. The effect would last a few hours before fading. The plan began to form. Sarah ordered the dye and a pH-altering solution online, both of which arrived within days. She spent an evening carefully mixing the chemicals into the pool, following the instructions to the letter. The water looked normal, but the next time someone disturbed it significantly, like say by jumping in, the dye would activate, turning the pool a shocking crimson. To add to the effect, she rigged a motion sensor alarm to her backyard lights, setting it to trigger a loud, eerie siren the moment anyone crossed the fence line. She also placed a few old medical props from the hospital, a fake 4-bag filled with red food coloring and a mannequin arm, strategically around the pool deck to heighten the scare. That Friday night, Sarah stayed up waiting. At 1:30 a.m., the familiar sound of rustling came from the east side of the fence. Her heart raced as she watched the camera feed on her phone. The 3 figures climbed over, their movements confident, unaware of what awaited them. The moment they hit the water, the pool erupted in a bright red glow, illuminated by the floodlights. The siren blared, a piercing wail that echoed through the neighborhood. The trespassers screamed, their voices high-pitched with panic as they scrambled out of the glowing red water, slipping on the deck in their haste. The fake 4-bag and mannequin arm, strategically placed under the lights, looked disturbingly real in the chaos. Sarah watched as they fled, one of them tripping over the fence in their panic. She didn't chase them, she didn't need to. The next morning, the pool was back to normal, the dye having faded as expected. She checked the backyard and found another abandoned item, a phone likely dropped in the chaos. She powered it on, and though it was locked, the home screen showed a photo of 3 teenagers posing at a local park. She recognized the keychain's high school logo in the background. This time, Sarah didn't go to the police. Instead, she took the phone to the high school, along with the backpack and the camera footage. She met with the principal, a stern but fair woman who took the matter seriously. Sarah explained everything, showing the evidence and emphasizing that she didn't want to press charges. She just wanted it to stop. The principal recognized the teenagers in the phone's photo immediately. They were seniors, known for minor trouble but nothing serious. The principal promised to handle it, and Sarah left the items with her, trusting the school to take appropriate action. For the next few weeks, Sarah kept a close eye on her backyard. The cameras recorded nothing but the occasional raccoon. The pool remained untouched, the deck clean, the water clear. She heard through neighborhood gossip that the 3 teenagers had been disciplined, community service, and a stern warning from the school. The principal had also called their parents, who were mortified and ensured their kids stayed far away from Sarah's property. Sarah's pool was hers again. She never told anyone about the dye or the siren, letting the neighborhood rumors swirl about the haunted pool that turned red and screamed at intruders. The story grew in the telling, and Sarah didn't mind. It added an extra layer of protection to her sanctuary. She'd fought for her peace and won, not with violence or expensive security, but with a clever, calculated plan that left the trespassers too scared to ever return. Her evenings by the pool were quiet now, the water calm under the stars. Sarah would float on her back, staring at the sky, knowing she'd reclaimed her space. The trespassers had underestimated her, but they'd never make that mistake again.